Welcome to SPOLIGHT, Voices of Impact, a 4-episode series highlighting Latino-led organizations. Through the Culturally Specific Services Program, CSSP, Esperanza United is proud to fund each of these leading organizations. Backed by the Office for Victims of Domestic Violence with American Rescue Plan funds, the CSSP provides grants and hands-on support so community groups can offer crisis response, emergency legal aid, financial assistance, traditional healing practices, and outreach tailored to their neighborhoods. Over this season, you'll hear what drives each leader, how they build trust with survivors, and the outreach tactics they use to reach those who need help most.
Hello everyone, welcome to Spotlight. On this first episode, we have Matt Mirarchi from Enlace Comunitario. Welcome, Matt. Could you please tell us about your role at Enlace Comunitario and about the organization itself?
Absolutely, and thank you all so much for having us. So my name is Matt Mirarchi. I am the Director of Advancement Operations for Enlace Comunitario. And what that means is I'm a member of the executive leadership team, and my role really focuses on the admin side of the organization that really helps to support our programmatic work, specifically with fundraising, communications and marketing, operations and information technology, and also policy advocacy. So I'm over all of those sub-departments within our administrative office.
Wow, it sounds like you are really busy. And tell us about Enlace Comunitario.
So Enlace Comunitario is a 25-year-old domestic violence service provider here in central New Mexico. And we were founded by and for the Latino and immigrant community that really identified service gaps here locally for domestic violence survivors whose primary language was Spanish and who were immigrants. And so at the time, back in 2000, there really weren't any culturally specific or linguistically specific services for domestic violence survivors. And Enlace really was founded by community members who identified these needs. And from then to now, it has grown significantly. And so Enlace really does provide one of the most comprehensive suites of services, especially intervention services in the state. So while we are primarily focused on our tri-county footprint, which is Bernalillo, Sandoval, and Valencia counties, we also do provide services to any DV survivor who comes to us in need outside of those areas. We recognize as a majority rural state that there are areas of the state that have no domestic violence services, so they have no access to DV services. And the fact that we also are able to provide our services in a hybrid fashion through Zoom, through teleconferencing, that's also an additional accessible component for many DV survivors who may not be able to be here physically, but they may be able to participate from a confidential space or on their phone virtually. And so that's something that we really pride ourselves on in terms of being a go-to anchor organization, not just in central New Mexico, but also the state. And another really important component of our work, in addition to our intervention services, is our prevention work. So we are also one of the only DV services providers that has a really robust prevention team. And as we all know, DV is both, to be really effectively addressed, it is helpful to have both intervention and prevention components to really address frontline, immediate emergencies and crises that DV survivors and their family members are facing, while also balancing that with systems change work at the community and state level whenever possible. And so we're really fortunate to have a strong intergenerational leadership development program in our prevention team. And that is actually inclusive of 2 sub-programs, our Promotores and our Youth Leaders program. And those are principally populated by former clients who transition through our intervention services and then volunteer to become compensated grassroots health advocates, both adults with the promotores and then youth witnesses or child witnesses of DV. And those are our youth leaders. And we also have a non-therapeutic support group. And then we have really expanded into area schools with our 3 curricula-guided prevention classes, our healthy relationships classes, and also our parenting classes. So again, we really provide and pride ourselves on providing a comprehensive suite of services that, again, take DV survivors from that point of crisis. So through our intervention services, we provide them with crisis intervention, case management, therapy, legal assistance, housing assistance, financial capability and workforce development, and life skills and parenting classes. And then once they transition through those services on their own terms, and as they author their self-authored service plan, since all of our services are client-directed, we want them to be in the driver's seat of their care and their healing. And once they transition through those services and are feeling stable and secure, that's the point at which, with their client advocate, they can decide whether they're interested in continuing their development, their leadership development in particular, by volunteering into the Promotoras or the Youth Leaders Program. So it's been really heartening to see the growth in Enlace over the past 25 years. And we're excited to continue to be an anchor organization, especially during such a charged time like what we find ourselves in right now.
That's very impressive, Matt. Fantastic. And what drew you to the mission of Enlace Comunitario?
So a couple of things drew me to the mission. So Enlace's longevity in the community really was something, it was a pull factor for me, because I always enjoy understanding the history of an organization, and especially one that is founded by and for community members, when they specifically focus on a need or identify a need and they take that action. They found an organization, they come together to found something that really helps community health and well-being. And so just the history of Enlace drew me in. And I also recognize that a lot of these systems and institutions in the United States are rooted in violence, unfortunately. And really, to address and change that takes a multifaceted approach. So what I just spoke to in terms of addressing things on multiple fronts with both intervention services and systems change work through our prevention services, those were also really impressive to me, that, again, we recognized, and the founders recognized, and everyone preceding me and our current staff recognized just the importance of addressing violence at multiple points of entry, so to speak. And the most, I would say, the most vital place to intercede and to address violence really is in the household. And so for me, as a child witness and survivor of DV, I recognize the fact that the services that we provide here at Enlace really do have health-centered effects long-term in the lives of the clients that we support. And I know for me personally, had my mother had access to services like what we provide here at Enlace, my childhood would have looked very different. And so while I personally will not be having children, my role here at Enlace and just my participation in this wonderful team and this organization really is my way of helping to shape a healthier future for younger generations, and also address and help dismantle some of these violent systems and institutions that perpetuate violence.
Matt, thank you so much for sharing such a wonderful story. And I can hear the passion in your voice about the mission. Next question, how do community members access your services?
So again, since Enlace was founded by and for community members, community really does lie at the heart of our mission and all of our programming. And we know that taking resources to our community, it's so important. And we really work to meet clients where they are and community members where they are. And that means providing multiple ways for clients and those interested in our services who may not yet feel comfortable identifying as a DV survivor to have multiple access points to our services. So in more traditional DV services models, we do provide the option of potential clients calling in telephonically, emailing us, and or walking in. Again, we know every DV situation is different, and some folks may be in the process of fleeing and may only be able to exit the situation on foot, in person and show up at our door. We have that happen quite frequently, and we are grateful to have, again, a very experienced team to address crises as they literally come in the door, and deal with every facet of safety planning right then and there with clients and any dependent children that they may have, and help get them into a stable, safe place where they can begin to heal and then be connected to Enlace services. And then on the flip side, with our prevention work, since we do have our promotoras, our youth leaders, and our full prevention team out in the community, in area schools, at community centers, giving presentations at the consulado, there are so many ways that community members who may be interested, say, in our prevention classes and our parenting classes and our healthy relating classes, to get more information. And so our promotoras, our youth leaders, and our prevention team really are out there in the community providing accessible resources to community members to invite them in to see if these resources are right for them or someone in their family. We recently had a prevention class participant who not only brought her sister, but she brought her niece as well. And then the niece's young daughter also took part in a synchronous age-appropriate life skills class that we had on site as well. So again, really seeing that community coming together, that community cohesion is really wonderful to see, because again, especially now, we want folks, especially in our primary client communities, to know that we're here, we're not going anywhere, we are doubling down on our mission, we are not diluting our mission, what we stand for. And many of our community members, they need that because there is so much fear and uncertainty, and also a lot of misinformation that's floating around out there. So we do our best to really meet community members where they are, whether they're a potential client or someone who is interested in some of our prevention work and how they can help, enhance communication in their household and help foster protective factors within their household.
Well, from this information, I am sure that you guys have a lot of trust from the community. From my experience, promotoras are a great way to get their trust. Do you want to tell us anything else about that?
So I would again just say that, and you just touched on it. So we really do recognize our promotoras and our youth leaders in particular as some of the most trusted grassroots messengers. We know, data, but also just everyday interactions, everyday anecdotes. Folks trust their neighbors more than a talking head on television, right? So if your neighbor is saying, hey, this class was really helpful for me, I really recommend it, you're much more inclined to take them up on that, especially if they also know that it is in their preferred language. There are very intentional measures put into place for safety, security, for facilitation, for childcare, for food. So it is something where we pride ourselves on remaining very much centered in community and ensuring that community guides any programmatic augmentations that we may make with Enlace. Since all of our services are client directed, we also know that clients are our best anti-violence community activists and advocates because of that firsthand experience. And so that's, again, one reason why we use all feedback that we get from clients, from community members, to really inform any programmatic shifts so that we stay true to that organizational DNA of what we were founded to do, which is identify gaps in the community and help bridge them to the best of our ability. And so that for us, and again, I sound like a broken record, but especially now during such a volatile time, we really want to ensure that our integrity as an organization remains intact and that our community knows that we are here for them over the long term and that we're not going anywhere. And that even though times are very challenging, we will remain steadfast in our commitment to community.
Thank you, Matt. That's amazing. And finally, let's talk about a very exciting topic, social marketing. I bet it's very challenging. You mentioned, the circumstances. Tell us about the social marketing strategies that have been successful for you guys.
Absolutely. So, and hats off also to Esperanza United, because they've also just through the support have been very, very much a part of our communications journey, as I like to say. And so a few years ago, right around the time of this funding opportunity, we were able to bring on board Enlace's first full-time communications and marketing position. And from that point on, they've been incredibly instrumental in helping us refine internal processes, scope new ways of generating, especially social media messaging, blogs, op-eds, any form of collateral that is both internally facing or externally facing, to again reflect not just our brand, but also our identity as a culturally specific organization. And so that's something that several years ago, we wouldn't have thought that we would have a completely new website and we would have all of this very engaging, interactive video graphic content, for instance, but also just a suite of sound bites, boilerplate language, framing for press releases, all of those very necessary bits and pieces, those puzzle pieces that ultimately come together to form a communications and marketing plan. And for us, especially now, with both shifting demographics and younger generations being much more engaged with and through short video content that's very visually engaging, but also informative, is something that we've really focused on. And just in assessing our analytics from our website, from all of our social media channels, that content, the short videos that are very authentic, very true to who Enlace is, shows actual staff members who work. They're conveying about their work, about what we're seeing in the community, in really open, transparent, authentic ways does resonate with folks. I think people, especially now, are craving that connection and that authentic connection, and knowing that there's intentionality behind a video and not just wanting to produce something because it looks pretty and sparkly. We found that some of our most effective videos are actually those that are off the cuff, that really show, whether they're community members or staff, really just talking and speaking from the heart about what is going on, what we're trying to do to address it, and how collectively we can come together to really address any pressing needs in the community. And so the video content is incredibly important, and also balancing that with any external blog posts, op-eds, just throwing things out there to remind people about the importance of anti-violence work in the larger movement of systems change. Again, as I spoke to before around just my personal connection with our mission, we know that so much of what we are seeing in today's world through policy violence, through violence that manifests in genocide and all of these horrific things, the perpetrators of that scaled violence often did experience violence at home, and it was left unaddressed, and it became normalized as a part of engaging in the world. And so part of our messaging and our framing has also been informing and educating people about the importance of not just funding DV work, but understanding what domestic violence is and all of its manifestations, right? So often folks just focus on the physical nature of DV, but they don't recognize the financial abuse. They don't recognize the mental or emotional abuse and so many other facets that factor into domestic violence, and how, when it's left unaddressed, how it does lead to violence outside the home. It leads to violence in communities in terms of mass violence events, unfortunately, in schools and in war, and what we're also seeing in terms of very targeted racist policy violence against communities that are already marginalized, but are now even more focused upon. And so it is something where we identify where those articulation points are and how domestic violence work does dovetail with so many of the other systemic problems in the world. And that, again, to really address things holistically, we A, have to work together, and B, deconstruct a lot of these silos that exist within the nonprofit world, but also the larger world, and recognize that we're all in this together, and that if we really begin to address violence at home in a very intentional, authentic way, it will really result in a healthier society for all of us. As trite and cliche as that sounds, DV work really is focused on community health and wellness, and that's something that was part of Enlace's mission from the get-go, and it will remain so.
Thank you, Matt. It's impressive. Again, I can say, and it's a privilege to listen to all the work you do, about everything you do against violence. So again, it's an honor to be in partnership with you guys. Anything
Absolutely.
else that you want to tell our audience about how to know more about Enlace Comunitario?
Well, we always welcome anyone who's interested, including partners who are in different parts of the country. Just to learn more about us, our website's enlacenm.org. And on there, we also have links to all of our social media channels, our YouTube page, Instagram, Facebook. And we really do encourage folks to, as part of Enlace, it's founding, we try to be as accessible as possible, and so we encourage folks to reach out to us and just ask if there are programs that other, say, organizations are interested in starting in their communities. How do you start a promotora program? What does it look like to have classes in schools? How do those partnerships develop? We're always happy to share what has worked, what has not, because that's part of learning. So we certainly welcome folks to reach out in any way that they're interested. And yeah, again, that way we remind each other that we're all in this together.
Thank you so much, Matt Mirarchi.
Thanks for tuning in to Spotlight. Stay with us for the next 3 episodes as we meet more organizations transforming Latino communities through the CSSP. Don't forget to share your feedback. We can't wait to share more stories of impact with you.
This presentation was developed by the Enlace Comunitario and does not necessarily represent the official views of the Office of Family Violence Prevention Services and Office of the Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This work is supported by grant number 90EV0556.